Welcome to the David Seaton Show, everybody. I am so glad to have you and welcome you to another live today, Tuesday, what is it, March 31st, 2026, at 7 p.m. as promised. Remember, we are going to go live on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Want to send a shout out to Patah. He actually just he opened up tonight right before the opening of the show, sending a $10 cash app. I appreciate that. Corey Hall sent one from last week's show. Appreciate that support. That means the world to us, and that helps us continue to bring this content to you. We're going to be going to uploading some long form content over the next couple of days to kind of fill in those times where we're not going live. And we're going to continue to bring you the most current stories and a perspective that you will only hear here at the David Seaton Show. Before we get started, we do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Maytag Laundry, that is located right here in Glendale Heights, Illinois. Let me go ahead and play that promo for you right quick. And here it is right now. Yeah. So thank you to Maytag Laundry for sponsoring the David Seaton Show. If you are a business and you want to sponsor the show, you can reach out to us at the David Seaton Show at gmail.com. But again, back to Maytag Laundry really quickly. We're doing this change of seasons right now where we're going into spring, and a lot of people have these huge comforters, but they don't have the washing machines, a large enough washing machine and dryer to actually clean them at home. All you have to do is visit www.maytaglaundryservice.com, and we will come and pick up your items from your home, bring them to our facility, wash, dry, and fold them, and then deliver them back to you. That is you have a 100% guaranteed satisfaction of quality from Maytag Laundry. So again, www.maytaglaundryservice.com. Thank you for sponsoring the David Seaton Show. So we're not going to hold you up anymore. We're going to be talking about a couple of different things tonight. We've got to talk about the SNAP benefits that are going into effect tomorrow, April the 1st. Everybody's been talking about that. There are a lot of people upset about it, but there are a lot of people like me who think it's well past time to have done something different. We've seen people who have stayed on SNAP benefits. As a matter of fact, any of you who are out there who are in the comments section, and I see you already, Brother Pataz checked in, Ethlyn Crenshaw, looking forward to hearing some truths. Lies will not be tolerated. That's right, sister. No lies here. Share and like, thank you for that, Pataz. And then my boy, correctional officer, giving a shout out, Brother David. I am surely will be supporting your platform. My wife and I are celebrating our precious 13-year-old granddaughter's bell ringing. What is that? Leukemia. Hey, prayers to your family. And like I said, I really, really appreciate that. Ethelyn Crenshaw, she put in another post signifying, talking about Sandra Tyndall and who the laundry here on Main Street, and left Ginger here with me. I don't know what she is talking about at all. She says she used $20 to use the washer. That's not Maytag Laundry, Ethelyn Crenshaw. The most expensive washing machine, I have the information from Maytag Laundry. Their most expensive washing machine is actually $12. So they're actually talking about a different facility. But I appreciate you for checking in and for participating in the chat. We're going to be talking about SNAP benefits. Let me get back to that. Got to talk about these teen takeovers. There's a particular alderman in particular in Chicago who I'm going to be calling out tonight, because the biggest reason why we continue to see these things happen in Chicago is because there's no accountability for these young people. Unfortunately, the mayor that we have in Chicago and the governor that we have in the state of Illinois will not hold these young people accountable. They want to blame everything and everyone. But first, this story just popped. I just saw this as I was preparing for tonight's show. I've got to show you this. This is absolutely crazy what's going on in the city of Chicago. And this actually happened on the Gold Coast of all places, and it happened in, midday. What is going on that we can't even be safe in downtown Chicago on the Magnificent Mile? Take a look at this story. I think this is absolutely sick.
Chicago police are still investigating that drive-by shooting that left 2 innocent bystanders injured. Investigators have not said yet if they've arrested the gunman.
It's not shocking, but it's sad.
A neighborhood on edge after gunfire erupts along a Gold Coast street on Chicago's near north side. Police say the violence erupted around 9:30 Monday night on Chicago Avenue near Rush Street.
We had a gunshot. So, I was like, oh, wow. So we came out, then we first saw the ambulance.
Investigators say a 22-year-old man was driving a red sedan when someone pulled up to him and opened fire. Aaron McDougal says people dining at a nearby restaurant hit the floor.
I heard boom, 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 boom. I think that's how many there were. And I remember thinking something sounded like gunfire. And my roommate at the time, said it's probably a car backfiring.
The barrage of bullets not only hit the man's car, it shattered the glass window of a donut shop, and a 25-year-old woman who happened to be walking by was shot in the leg.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting to do that, to turn that. I'm just going to leave the volume. I'm not going to mute it anymore so that I don't have to make that mistake anymore. So I appreciate you putting that into the chat. So how many of you have been down to that Star Donut shop in downtown Chicago on Michigan Avenue? If you've been down there, I've driven past there, but I've never actually been in that particular donut shop. So if you've been in there, go ahead and let us know in the chat. But more importantly, think about these knuckleheads getting into these drive-by shootings going on downtown Chicago. An innocent woman gets shot in the leg. The window gets shot of that store. If there are any business owners out there who are listening to us tonight, you know that every time you file a claim on your insurance, that makes your insurance goes up. It makes it more difficult if your insurance company drops you to go and get insurance from a competing company. I mean, there are just so many, there's so many ripple effects that happen when we don't have law and order. It disrupts commerce, and then businesses close. When businesses close, people lose their jobs. That employer has to suck up the cost of everything they did to build up that particular business. Not to mention that's lost tax revenue to the city. When you don't have that money coming in, it's going to disrupt, it's going to create blight in that area. All you have to do is walk down State Street downtown, and on the east side of State Street, nothing but buildings that have been boarded up, some of them since the pandemic. So you've got work from home that's interrupting, businesses. You've got violence that's interrupting it. It's just this ripple effect. And it would really, really be so much more beneficial for the city of Chicago if they had an executive who really understood the importance of law and order. Without law and order, you don't have anything. That brings us to what happens last night. Let me see real quick. Okay, Marjorie Tatum is in the house. I appreciate you. Patah, 25-year minimum. That's right, bro. Hey, yeah, we need to come up with some mandatory minimums. As much as I hear people criticize the crime bill of 1994, there's one thing that we can say unequivocally that was a benefit of the crime bill. All of the crack and the drive-bys and the gang shootings, a lot of the things that was just commonplace in the late 80s and early 90s, we don't see that today. Certainly we still have violence, and we still have a drug culture, but it's not nearly as bad as it was in the late 80s and early 90s. You know why? Because a lot of the purveyors of that violence were remanded to state custody, and they were kept in custody long enough that by the time they came out, the world had changed. They couldn't, get away with the same things like they did, 20, 30 years ago. We've got to hold people accountable. And this lack of accountability is really what's causing a lot of these things to get out of hand. Let me go ahead and throw this up for you for anybody who wants to support the show. You can support us through Venmo at DA Seaton, at Cash App. That's $, The David Seaton Show. Shout out to Corey Hall from last week and Patah tonight. And then I know there's going to be one person in there, I forget her name, she's going to ask about Zelle. You can Zelle at seaton.david.a@gmail.com. But let's get to these teen takeovers. Again, everybody, it's March 31st. Have we had the first day of spring yet? I mean, it's still technically March. It's March. It's not even April 1st until tomorrow. Yesterday was March the 30th. It was an uncharacteristically warm day yesterday in Chicago. It was 82 degrees. And what happens when the weather gets warm? You see these knuckleheads come out of the woodworks, and they were all in Hyde Park last night. Again, hundreds of unsupervised kids in Hyde Park just wreaking havoc, and it's out of control. Take a look, if you're not aware, because this just got talked about in the last few hours, take a look at what happened in Hyde Park yesterday in Chicago.
I'm Liza Marino live in Hyde Park, where residents are demanding accountability following a teen takeover late last night where several vehicles were damaged. Take a look at this video that was shared by one resident. Crowds can be seen of teenagers flooding the streets in Hyde Park late last night. Part of what police and city leaders have described as a growing trend of so-called teen takeovers. These gatherings, often organized on social media, have been popping up across Chicago, many times leading to fights, property damage, and police presence. In this case, witnesses describe a group of about 500 teens moving through the neighborhood, creating a chaotic and tense environment. One resident we spoke to says his vehicle was damaged. He wants to know where these kids' parents are and why they allow them to continue to do these reckless acts of violence.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. The hood is completely messed up. It's terrible. I'd say like $1,000 worth of damage probably. I have dents everywhere, footprints everywhere. Your kid should not be out here. When I was a kid, I wouldn't even think to do stuff like this. I'm just being honest, I wouldn't. But I had parents who guided me. They guided my decisions of what I did. These parents, they just let them run rampant. So I don't know if I have a message.
And he makes a great point. I mean, I'm 52 years old. So I grew up in the late 70s and then the early 80s. When I was coming up, and put it in the chat if you can actually relate to this. Savannah, shout out to Savannah, 6513 from Ohio. When we were kids, probably the most irritating thing that we did was play ding dong ditch, where we would run up to a random person's house on the block and we would ring the doorbell a bunch of times and then run away and then laugh when we would see the person come to the door. And they would, there would always be that one person who would come to the door and say, "You kids better start ringing my doorbell." But we weren't damaging anything. We weren't causing any property damage. We weren't throwing rocks through their windows or jumping up and down on their cars or anything like that. Yeah, it was irritating, but we did things like hide and go seek and red light, green light, and we played piggy, or we went to the park, and we were doing things that were productive. And on top of that, coming up in my generation, we didn't have to worry about being shot. The worst thing that would happen when I was coming up is that you might get into a fist fight, but you weren't going to get shot. You weren't going to get shot at. It wasn't dangerous. It might have, it might have just been regular kid mischief. But what has happened in one, maybe two generations, that these kids are just so out of hand? I submit that when I was growing up, and I know a lot of you who are in the chat and who are watching this, when you were growing up, if you did something silly, you knew that your parents, they would call up the parents on the block might call your parents and say, "Hey, I saw David outside doing blah, blah, blah." And so you'd get in trouble, get a talking to from the parent who saw you, and then you'd get in trouble when you got home because you embarrassed your parents to somebody else. There was this community that we had where we all held one another accountable. And it's not just happening in Chicago, people. As much as you would like to think it, yesterday we had another issue just across the border up in Wisconsin. This was just at a mall up in Wisconsin. Same exact thing you saw up there. Take a look at this.
Video tonight shows teenagers swarming store to store at Bayshore Mall, some even fighting each other.
Yeah, all of it part of what was shared on social media as a teen takeover. Glendale police arrested 14 people. 12 News investigative reporter James Stratton is live at Bayshore tonight. And James, police on the scene there for hours last night.
At Blake Rhea, from about 2:30 until well after 8, Glendale police were trying to control the crowd. As you mentioned, arrested 14 young people ages 12 to 19. Those we interviewed today who live here at Bayshore say they've never seen anything like it. And an older woman who represents the mall says kids need more programming and places to go. Monday, a normal shopping day at Bayshore Mall with more security and police. 24 hours after what was advertised on social media as a teen takeover.
We had a report of a group of juveniles inside of Kohl's making threats to employees.
Starting at 2:20 p.m., people started calling Glendale police about a group of teens roaming around the outdoor mall.
There is a group of juveniles, unknown amounts, that are causing a disturbance. They've been asked to leave by Bayshore security and they're refusing.
The event shared on Instagram telling teens to be there starting at 4 o'clock. Yeah, they fight. Video shows a group running down the sidewalk, some fighting outside of stores.
And the kids were like surging like a swarm of bees across the mall from one place to another.
Rick and Joan Rockamora live at Bayshore and say their complex warned them of the takeover ahead of time. Alderwoman Tamika Vukovic, speaking over the phone, says she's saddened it happened. Hundreds of kids gathered, but about 20, she says, were fighting.
Their intent, from what I gather, was to hang out. If a fight broke out because they were gathered, that is not what it originally was for.
And that's what I'm talking about. Lack of accountability. The first thing you hear that this woman talking, or the first thing you hear her saying, is she's making excuses. Like when are we going to just say, when are we just going to say enough is enough? Start throwing these kids in juvie when they start committing acts that are too antisocial. Certainly if you're getting into fights, certainly if you're shooting someone, you should be thrown into juvie for a minimum of, say, 3 to 6 months. And start finding these parents. You start finding these parents, I guarantee you, those parents will start jacking their kids up because they don't want a $1,000 bill out of nowhere because their kids are misbehaved. They don't want to have to possibly have to go to court, take a day off work, all of this. And there's going to always be those people that are saying, oh, you're just targeting these people because they're Black. We're not targeting people because of their race. We're targeting people because of their behavior. And we've got to impress upon these parents who are not holding their children accountable and these poorly behaved children that there are consequences for your actions. It's fine to look the other way and don't hold these kids accountable. Well, guess what? When they turn 18, life is going to hold them accountable. And the accountability from life is going to be so much more severe. We're actually, contrary to popular belief, you're actually showing children that you love them, that you are holding them accountable now, so they'll be able to have some self-accountability later when they become adults. And I want to share one more with you. There's one more that happened in Florida. Same kind of thing, same kind of these teen takeovers that are just happening. And again, this is down, I believe, in Brandon, Florida. It's right out of, I think, Tampa. Again, same thing. So it's not just a Chicago thing. This is an epidemic of parents not holding their kids accountable, and it's happening all over the country.
Well, another TikTok challenge is spreading across the country, and like many of these, it has led to problems. In Brandon, 20 teens were arrested during so-called teen takeovers at entertainment businesses. Hillsborough County deputies are now warning teens about this challenge, saying it does come with consequences. Fox 13's Blake Devine explains.
Sheriff's deputies say it's happening here, along with cities all across the country. What starts on social media is quickly escalating into fights, violence, and arrests. It happens when teens get on TikTok and agree to meet somewhere before bombarding businesses. This body camera footage from a teen takeover on March 21st is at Urban Air in Brandon. Similar incidents also happened at Astro Skate on March 19th and March 28th. There have been several fights with 20 teens arrested across these three events.
200 juveniles just causing chaos and havoc. That's unacceptable.
That crowd does not come to jump at the trampoline park or buy stuff at the mall or skate at the roller rink. They come to fight.
Several of the teens could face charges of trespassing, obstruction, and battery. Sheriff's deputies are monitoring social media for any efforts to bring large crowds to local businesses. The owner of Astro Skate says his staff will meet with sheriff's deputies on Tuesday to discuss strategies to defuse these situations. Reporting in Hillsborough County, Blake Devine, Fox 13 News.
So here's a crazy, let's have a conversation. I want to talk to the people who are in the chat. And do me a favor, like I said, if you're just coming into the chat, make sure you like the feed, share it. Like I said, we want to try and get this conversation out to as many like-minded individuals as possible. But let's have a conversation about some particular strategies and solutions. I think it would be a really good idea, and I haven't heard anybody talk about this, but I think one really good idea would be finding the smartest kids who attend these schools, who live in these neighborhoods, who know these kids, and have them on the social media task force. So they have somebody who's inside. Obviously, they would have to keep it secret, or they'd have to, do whatever they have to do to protect those kids. But we should be it would be really, really easy to recruit some kids from within these neighborhoods and have them, just like you have these stupid CVI, these Chicago violence interrupters, that they go and find ex-con gang leaders and bring them in so they can go in and stop the violence, blah, blah, blah. What about just recruiting from within this community, these communities of children, because they know the kids, they know the area, they're part of the community, they know what's going on, and then you pay them so that they can you can get some real intel. But trying to pretend like I, David Seaton, at 52 years old, know what high school kids are talking about, and then I'm going to be able to get inside of their social media and understand their lingo. That doesn't make sense. That's not reasonable. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to use adults who are too far removed from this generation, and we're trying to use that as a strategy. Here's something else. They do this in other countries. Something really simple. How about you have to be 16 years old before you have an actual cell phone? This thing that Facebook and Google just got charged hundreds of millions of dollars because they know that these devices are addictive, and we're giving them to children. We put age restrictions on when you can buy cigarettes, when you can buy alcohol, when you can buy cannabis, when you can drive. You got to be 18 to join the military or sign a contract. How about just putting a minimum age on when you can actually have this device that we know is addictive? These are very common sense things. Even in China, they have a certain amount of time that children can spend on social media every day. Think about that. TikTok was created in China. They export it over here, and our kids use it 24 hours a day. But in China, where it originated, they can only spend 1 hour a day on social media. That's mandated by the government because they know how addictive this is. These are just common sense things. This isn't changing the world. Age restrictions, holding people accountable, recruiting kids from within these communities, so you're getting real-time intel from kids who have the information on the ground. Again, to me, these are just off the top of the head, spitballing ideas that we could implement that are just common sense approaches to try and get this stuff under control. Let me see. Correctional officer says, I have trained martial science self-defense for nearly 45 years with multiple disciplines. Praying Mantis Jung Fu, I will be offering tips throughout the podcast. Man, I love that. He says that he executed a tactical move last year at around 4 a.m. and 2 Mexicans ran into an awaiting van yelling, wrong addressee. Patah, before crack came, we used to break dance on the block up until midnight sometimes. Exactly. Patah, that's such a great example. That was back during that time. the biggest beef that you had on the block with somebody was who had the biggest boom box. you know, that's back when you had to get 20 D batteries and put it into this boom box so that you'd be able to walk around, or you would have people that used to strap their boom boxes to the handlebars on their bikes. You know, again, we used to play football in the street. You know, those are the craziest things that we did. But certainly we weren't going out trying to cause property damage. And even that guy who spoke earlier, who lives in Hyde Park, said he had $1,000 worth of damage. Everybody in this chat is an adult. If you get $1,000 worth of damage and you have a $1,000 deductible on your auto insurance, guess how much the auto insurance is going to pay? $0. Guess how much you have to pay? $1,000. So if we just started, hey, all the damage that's happened in these areas, police CPD goes out there, grabs these kids, gets a list of names, all the kids they can get, and they say, hey, there was $10,000 worth of damage that happened in this area. We got 10 kids. We're going to divide that $10,000 worth of damage amongst the 10 kids who we have, and their parents have to split that bill. Very, again, just simple common sense things that if you or I as an adult went out and was jumping up and down on somebody's car and damaging the hood, we wouldn't be able to say, well, we were bored. We didn't have anything to do. So, we just went out and just ran amok in the neighborhood. Even this whole idea of the kids don't have anything to do, that doesn't impress me. That's not enough of you don't get to go out and commit property damage because you're bored. But let me just show you this video. This is Alderman Will Hall. And I've had the opportunity to interview Alderman Will Hall. I think he is well-intentioned, but here again, it's the same passing the buck. It's the same not holding people accountable. This is his solution that he wants to implement. Let me find this video of him. He's made this recommendation before. I think it's ridiculous, but this is his recommendation on what we should do to try and take care of these teen takeovers. Take a listen to this.
When you have thousands of kids sharing where to meet up to do, some, violent acts, if those accounts were not sharing it, then the question becomes, would the information have got out as fast?
Alderman Hall says Chicago police have reached out to social media platforms before, urging them to remove credible teen takeover posts.
When reaching out to these companies to say, hey, we have credible evidence, help us. And they just go silent. And so what we're doing now is essentially holding them accountable.
His new ordinance would allow city leaders to identify a credible threat online and reach out to social media companies, who would then have 6 hours to remove the post or correspond with the city explaining their decision not to. If the request goes ignored, the city could fine the company $50,000.
We don't want to continue to overwork our officers. We don't want to continue to overwork the budget and allow social media companies not to be held accountable or don't pay the bill.
TikTok spokespeople would not comment on the ordinance, but referred us to their law enforcement guidelines for removal, which said TikTok is committed to protecting the freedom of expression, privacy, and other rights of its users. Meta did not respond. This came the same day Alderman.
So you hear Alderman Hall there, and he's really, again, I hesitate to really come down on him too hard because he's a nice guy. And I believe he's trying to come up with a novel approach. But when you hear him say the word accountability, he's not talking about the accountability of the parents. He's not talking about the accountability of the children. He's talking about accountability of the medium that's being used. So let's just say that 200 kids get into a text thread, or they get into an email thread. And that's the way they communicate with one another. They don't go through TikTok or social media. They go through text or they go through email. Let's say they call each other. That's a novel idea, right? that phones were made to actually call someone so you could talk to someone on the other end. But if these kids are on Verizon or AT&T and they text or call one another, are you going to try and find Verizon and Verizon and AT&T? You're not going to try and find them because people are phoning each other or FaceTiming one another or they're calling one another. And that's why I said that we need to find young people who are parts of these communities that can actually give us the intel, because Alderman Will Hall, although he's not an old guy, I think Will Hall is in his he might be in his late 30s, early 40s. He's around there. And I remember him telling me his age, but he's just old enough to think TikTok is to blame and Facebook is to blame, as opposed to blaming the people who are actually committing the offenses and the people to whom they are responsible. Think about it like this. Tell me if this makes sense in the chat. And I appreciate everybody going back and forth in the chat. Karen said Alderman Hall is a loser. But think about this example. Tell me if this makes sense. If I go and walk, if I have a dog, if I have a pit bull, let's use the one that's usually thought of as the most vicious. If I have a pit bull or a Rottweiler that's in my backyard, and my dog gets outside, I've got my fences closed, and somehow that dog gets outside of the backyard, it's somehow able to open up the fence, and it goes outside of the backyard, and it goes and bites someone. Who's going to be held accountable? Me. If my Rottweiler or my pit bull gets outside of the backyard and goes and bites some kid or mauls someone, the police is going to come to me and say, hey, David Seaton, that's your dog. You didn't do what you were supposed to do to keep your dog enclosed within your property, and your negligence caused the dog to escape the backyard, go out there, maul, bite, or hurt someone, so you're going to be held responsible. Adult dogs have the level of mental cognition that's comparable to a 5-year-old. So society is going to hold you or me accountable if our dog that has the cognitive level of a 5-year-old human, they're going to hold us accountable and say, you should have kept that dog in. But a teenager can go out and create all this havoc, create all this damage, create property damage, disrupt commerce. They can have all of these ill effects to society, but parents can't be held accountable for what their children do, but you can be held accountable for what a dog does. That just on its face doesn't make sense. If your child is 13, 14, 15 years old and they don't have enough self-discipline to go into a community and not cause havoc in that community, that means one of two things. Either that child is poorly behaved and can't be managed, or it means that you didn't raise that kid just like the dog, and now that kid goes out. So if it's either by omission of action as a parent or you're just a bad parent, you should be held accountable for what your children do, just like you or I would be held accountable for what our pit bull or our Rottweiler or our Doberman Pinscher does. Let's see. Karen says absolutely. Let's see. Correctional officers throw up, tackle, piggy. He's talking about the games we used to play as kids. Piggy again. Slap boxing, run chief run. He said he put in double dutch. When I was coming up, every young girl in my neighborhood knew how to jump double dutch, and they knew how to turn double dutch. Every female. As a matter of fact, when I went to college, when I went to university, when I first went away, I graduated from high school, I went to NIU, and a lot of more than 50% of the Black students were from Chicago. In the summertime, in the springtime, they'd be jumping double dutch in front of the dorms. Because we found ways to have fun and to do things, and we had to be creative doing them because we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have computers and laptops. Hell, I'm old enough to remember, tell me if anybody remembers this, throw this in the chat. I'm old enough to remember where I grew up in the suburbs, the area code was 708. So I remember a time when there were only 3 zip codes. There was 708, there was 312 for the city, and I think there was 630 for the far west suburbs. I'm old enough to remember that calling from 708 to 312 was a long distance call. I can remember having family members that lived in 312, and they would tell my cousins who lived in the city, hey, don't be calling out there to David, they're gonna use up my units. That's what I used to hear my aunt say. They're gonna use up my units. But my point is that something happened between the late 80s when my generation was coming up. And we're only talking about 40 years later. We're not talking about 100 years, 200 years. We're talking about 40 years where we had an entire generation when I was coming up where we knew how to have fun and to do things that kids did that was, for the most part, pretty innocent and pretty benign. Fast forward to today, everything these kids do. And I hate to sound like one of those adults that's saying, oh, these kids, get off my, I'm not trying to come off like that old guy that's saying, get off my lawn. But what I am saying is that what this generation of children is doing is just blatantly, flat out, dangerous, destructive, and it's causing damage to, like I said, the very fabric of what holds us together as a community. And nobody is holding them accountable. So guess what? Tomorrow it's going to be a little bit cooler, and by the weekend the temperature is going to warm back up. I guarantee you they're going to be right back out this weekend. And I'm willing to go on the line and make this prediction. Tell me if you agree with this in the chat. I'm willing to go on the record and say this summer is going to be a particularly perilous summer in the city of Chicago. Dare I say across the country, but I definitely think it's going to happen this summer in Chicago. And it puts Brandon Johnson in a really precarious position because the election is coming up next March. So he's either got to do one of two things. He's either got to continue doing what he's doing, shackling CPD, not letting them do their job, and continue to let this chaos happen, which will impact his reelection. Or number two, he's got to come down and be very heavy-handed to appear as though he's trying to address this violence. But in so doing, it's going to be nakedly political because he hasn't done anything for the first 3 summers of his tenure. So it would look obviously political if he does it this summer, summer 26, because the election is going to come up in March of 27. Tell me in the chat, do you believe that Brandon Johnson is going to get reelected next year? I'm predicting that, you know what, I'm going to wait for you to put it in the chat and we'll just go on and we'll keep that going. Correctional officer said, I agree 100%. Brother David Mayor Johnson is going to straddle the fence with Pritzker for some aid and assistance for his election. He is absolutely going to straddle the fence. What can he run on? I mean, anybody who's out there, please tell me, what can Brandon Johnson possibly run on to get reelected? He's going to play the race card. I mean, every time I've got this actual bingo card. I think I might bring out this bingo card that I made for him, that there are certain things that he always says. He always says black and brown. He always mentions the LGBTQ community. He always says something about, one death is too much and we've got more work to do. He always says disinvestment. He's just got probably a dozen little buzzwords that he tries to fit in every time he speaks publicly. And it's just, like I said, it's just so nakedly political. I, for one, am tired of talking about, or just tired of listening to him. Whenever he speaks, he just sounds like somebody was attacking him earlier on X from Axios. I can't remember his name, but both he and Jamal Green just let him have it. But they were calling him a buffoon, just, looking at what happened at Hyde Park, like I said, last night. Any of you who didn't see that interview I did with Jamal Green, you can, when this video is over, you can go and you can see that video. It was actually Jamal Green and Patricia Easley. Most of you know her as P. Ray. That was a great interview. And for those of you who are not subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on your notification bell. I've got an entire playlist of 50 or more videos I've done about Brandon Johnson, going all the way back to when he first got elected. And got to give a teaser right here. On Thursday, you don't want to miss Thursday, we're going to actually have Tyrone Mohammed. He's running as an independent for the U.S. Senate seat in the state of Illinois. I know he's got a lot to say about these teen takeovers and who should be held accountable. Don't want to miss that. And then on Sunday at 7 p.m., we're going to have Zoe Lee and Danielle Carter from Chicago Flips Red. You don't want to miss these next 2 episodes. So please make sure you subscribe to be kept up to date on everything that we're doing. Dexter C70 asked, who is running against Brandon Johnson? Well, there's been several people who've, kind of talked about it. You'll see that campaign good in full swing sometime between now and the summer. In the fall, that's when they'll start having the debates. But there's one person in particular, and I hope he's out there listening right now, and I hope he's out there watching. There's one person in particular whose name I am waiting for him to put his hat in the ring. So remember that I said there's this one person out there. I can't say his name yet, but I'm waiting for him to go ahead and make his announcement. And I'm going to do everything I can for this particular individual to help him get reelected, because I know that anybody would be better than Brandon Johnson, but he would be orders of magnitude better than Brandon Johnson because he believes in law and order. Interview people like Karen said, interview people like Patah and Savannah. Absolutely. I would love to do that. I know Patah, you're up in Minnesota, I think. And Savannah, I know you're out in Ohio. So that is what I'm going to try and do. Karen, thank you for putting that into the chat. I'm actually working on that, where I'm going to put the link for this live into the chat so that people can come on and we can have those one-on-one types of conversations. So matter of fact, why don't you do this? Both Savannah and Patah, do me a favor, and anybody else, correctional officer. Again, I would love for you and I to meet. Correctional officer, he says that he's part of this barbecue community. I can't wait to get with him. So we're gonna be competing with brisket and beef ribs and pork ribs and and all of that. But do me a favor, anybody who's in the room tonight, if you would like to come on to the show and appear live when we're having these types of conversations, email me your email address at thedavidseatonshow@gmail.com, and I will send you, I'll probably, keep it to no more than 2 or 3 people per live, but I'll send you the link so that way you'll be able to come on. And then if you have a comment about something that we're conversing about, that we can do that in real time. So send me your email address at thedavidseatonshow@gmail.com. And let's have this more interactive. I want to get as many people involved in these conversations as possible. Chocolate82467 posted. Now I'm going to play devil's advocate. I have no problem with holding parents accountable when their kids cause damage, but what about those parents that don't care? That is a great, great point, because we have to assume, I think, that a lot of these parents don't care. For those parents, Chocolate, I say kids in juvie 3 to 6 months, and let their parents have to work the swap program, something like that, where they have to go clean up garbage on the side of the road, or they have to volunteer so many hours per week. And if they don't show up to the swap program and they don't do their community service, their volunteer hours, let them go sit in county for a couple of days. I bet you they'll straighten up then. The point to it is, Chocolate, I agree with you that a lot of parents do not care. But the reason they don't care is because there are no consequences. Their kids are going to get a slap on the wrist, sent home. They're going to go to court. Judge is going to just give them probation or just tell them, hey, don't do it again because of the Safety Act. And then they come home and the parents say, hey, go to your room, play your PlayStation, play your Xbox. They don't take their phones. There've got to be, if people know that there's a specific consequence for a specific action, most people will modify their behavior if the consequence is onerous enough. Oftentimes, and in blue cities and blue states today, the consequences are not onerous. The consequences are barely even consequences. So if you do have a parent who's indifferent, who doesn't care, then they're definitely not going to care if it's not going to hit them in the pocket, if it's not going to hit them in their time, and if it's not going to cause them to be inconvenienced. We have to start holding people accountable. And let me say one more thing. Savannah said, looking forward to those interviews. Absolutely. Let me say one more thing, and I'd love to hear people's opinion about this. And I'm going to do something about this in more detail. This generation, far more than any generation past, especially since it's become legalized, this generation is smoking cannabis during their developmental years way more than generations past. And I would otherwise be indifferent about that, except for one huge difference. The THC that was in cannabis in the 60s during Woodstock, during that time, it was maybe 3 to 5% THC. The THC in these strands that they are selling today is as high as 35%. And in some of these other kind of cannabis THC products, it can be above 90%. So think about what's happening to these teenage minds that are still during their development. Biologists say right now that women's brains continue to develop until they're around 25, and that men's brains can continue to develop between 25 and 30. So we've got huge swaths of children who are consuming this highly potent cannabis, and it's impacting them during the time that their brain is developing the most. Maybe that's something that we need to look at. Maybe, I mean, obviously we have an age limit on when someone can purchase THC, but if you see a bunch of 16, 17, 15-year-old kids walking around the city and they're smoking marijuana, police is not going to say anything to them. Might say something to them if they're driving a car, but they're definitely not stopping kids walking down the street. And again, it's because of lack of consequences. There've got to be some consequences to this bad behavior, but I definitely believe that the consumption, the increase, the spike in the consumption of this much more highly potent strand of cannabis that these young people have access to today, I really think it's impact. It might be, I think there's a causal relationship between that and the behavior that we're seeing. Savannah, thank you for the shout out, Karen and David. Oh, no problem, Savannah. Laura. If it's the David Seaton Show, I'm screening it. Hello, so just the live will be best. That's Laura. That's she's on our team. Great person. Love her. Love working with her. Karen says she loves Dexter. And she just commented and said, weed is destroying our children. It really, really is. Correctional officer posted, Brother David, you are on point 100%. There's a station I will not waste time naming that has Brother Ken Duncan hosting today, and he was constantly fought for expressing similar viewpoints as you. And it's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. And that station that shall not be named is filled with hosts who are more convinced of blaming externalities and playing the victim than they are talking about self-accountability and actually making the decisions that lead to better outcomes. If every single problem you hear someone talk about, their first and only explanation is racism, get away from that person. That person is a victim, and anyone who follows the David Seaton Show knows that I don't play the victim, and I don't accept victimhood. That's not what we do here at the David Seaton Show, and that's not what we do in our community. Before I let you get out of here, I've got to talk about these changes to SNAP that go into effect tomorrow, April 1st. And it's not a surprise. I don't know why everyone is acting so surprised, but SNAP benefit changes starting tomorrow. Take a listen.
This period ends next week. Starting April 1st, shoppers won't be able to use SNAP to buy sugary snacks in the state of Indiana.
Yeah, the law's been on the books since January. Now, if you're on SNAP, you got to check the labels. Don't get caught at checkout. Candy's off the list. That part's obvious. The tricky part is in the drink aisle. Any drink with over 5 grams of sugar, added sugar, is out.
Milk or milk substitutes, regardless of their sugar content. Anything that has 50% more vegetable or fruit juice is still allowed. Things like Pedialyte, which is so important, are still allowed. And then obviously everything else that they've been able to use their SNAP benefits for in the past, meat, dairy, produce, canned goods, things like that, are all still allowed. Nothing else is changing.
Critics of this say, sure, health matters, but a lot of people on SNAP can't even get fresh food. They're making do with what's at the gas station or corner store. By next Wednesday, 18 states will have this ban.
If you're a
I thought this was something that was going to be a nationwide ban. And I've talked about this before. If you go out on a date, I'm talking to all the men out there, men or women. You know, let's not even make it about gender. If you take someone out on a date and you sit down at the table in that restaurant, and the waiter comes over and hands both of you your menus, and the person now remember, you're paying for the date. The person sitting across from you, they just start ordering the most expensive things on the menu. If you're the one paying, you have the right to say, hey, whoa. You can't order that. I'm not paying $500 for you to have a tomahawk steak and lobster mac and cheese and a bottle of Dom. I'm not doing that. I just brought you out for a nice little dinner. If you want to find something over $100, and then if the person pushes back and say, well, this is what I want, then you have the right to say, well, if that's what you want, then you pay for it. Because when I invited you to dinner, I had a certain dollar amount, I had a certain budget in mind. So I'm not going to just pay for whatever it is. If that's what you want, you can pay for it. It's really just, I don't understand why people are making it more complicated than that. If you are on SNAP, if you are on EBT, you are having someone else pick up the tab. And the person who picks up the tab gets to dictate how they are going to let you spend their money. We already know people who are on SNAP and on EBT tend to have higher percentages of health comorbidities. They tend to be experience obesity more because of the types of foods that they typically buy. That means that they're going to get sicker more often, and then they have to get on Medicaid. So then we're paying for Medicaid. It's really doing a benefit to them to tell them, hey, you can't buy certain things with your SNAP benefits. And it's in the long run, it's going to benefit you because you're going to have healthier outcomes. It's going to eventually talk about less diabetes, less hypertension, less obesity. All of those things are the benefits. And we, as the taxpayers, you and I, we're the ones picking up the tab. So we have the right to tell somebody, no, I think high fructose corn syrup should be outlawed in the United States because it has so many health effects. I don't understand why we're even having this conversation. Todd just put something else great in the chat. The act of self-medicating with the hybrid weed, opioids, and liquor has definitely contributed to the savage behavior of our youth. I couldn't agree more. Karen posted, my right hip has made my fat butt to start working out, and I look and feel better. I began chasing and feeling, and I'm getting a look. It happened by me forcing myself to be healthy, and I procure. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that because I don't want to sound silly. Take them to Mickey D's and get them a Happy Meal. No, Mickey D's is poison. I remember. I have number one. I haven't had McDonald's probably in 10 years. The only time that I had McDonald's in the last 10 years is because I was at an airport traveling on business and hadn't had an opportunity to get something to eat. And McDonald's was the only restaurant that was open in that terminal. So I did grab something. I think it was a quarter pounder. But as soon as I got on the plane, I immediately had to go to the bathroom. But I can remember what McDonald's tasted like 25 or 30 years ago when it got really, really bad and I stopped eating it. I can remember it like it's it's like day and night. There's just certain things, there's just certain foods I'm not going to put in my body, and that's allowed me, despite me being a type 2 diabetic, because I inherited that on both my mother's and my father's side of the family. I've been able to maintain my AC1. I've been able to maintain, my overall health because of my diet. There are just certain things I'm not going to eat. Now I do have, a couple of vices where I'll smoke a cigarette and I'll have a drink, but definitely the two biggest things that you can do to mitigate genetics and other issues that you might otherwise have is by diet and exercise. If you don't diet and you don't exercise, if you don't watch what you're putting into your body, then you're going to have poor health outcomes. Karen says she hasn't had McDonald's since she was in the 4th grade. See, we need to get her an award. And correctional officer posted K2 is going to possibly wreck shop worse than crack in terms of deaths. K2. You have to explain to me what K2 is. I want to make sure that everybody in the chat knows that what we're talking about. But before I let you get out of here, I've got to let you see some of these responses on TikTok to the discussion of these new rules that are being made for the SNAP benefits. It's amazing to me how people who are being given free money have the temerity to try and dictate the terms under which they receive that free money. It's just crazy. But let's take a look at it. This is just where we find ourselves.
2026, they're changing the SNAP benefits. They're telling you what to eat or what you can't eat with your own benefits. If you receive SNAP, watch this video. You heard me. They're changing the rules and telling you what you cannot buy, and no one's really explaining exactly what this means. And if you're new here, my name is Chunky. I help you find a way to make a way out of no way. I help you with resources, deals, grants.
I support the new SNAP rules. No candy, no sugary drinks, no sweet stuff. If my tax dollars are going to pay for the groceries, at least make sure the groceries is nutritious. If you don't like it, you can argue in the goddamn comments. The same people screaming healthcare is too expensive is buying every damn thing to destroy their health. This the accountability I was talking about. And if you don't like it, buy your own damn snacks.
Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. If you stay in Texas, Houston, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Beaumont, Texas, anywhere in Texas, starting April the 1st, the Senate Bill 379 has passed and it takes into effect. Let's hop right into it. All right, so for 379, to break it down, anyone that purchased SNAP EBT, y'all know how y'all do. Y'all buy food stamps off of your homegirl, homeboy, or if you receive SNAP food stamps EBT from the city, the state, the county, wherever, they have imposed bans. And the bans came from the Republicans. Remember, the Republicans own and operate the Senate and the House. Now,
take a look. You're likely to see signs like this during your next trip to the grocery store, warning shoppers that the rules for SNAP benefits are changing. Starting April 1st in Texas, you won't be able to use SNAP to buy things like candy, gum, or sugary drinks.
So tell me what you think about that. I agree 110%. And I've heard so many people, and I'm glad that one woman kind of made it this kind of Republican Democrat kind of conversation, because when you talk to Democrats, all you hear them say is, oh, the Trump tax bill got passed and they cut all this money from EBT and SNAP and people are going to be starving. No, they're not. Don't let anybody tell you that. No one's going to be starving. If you, instead of you going and being able to buy a bag of chips, now you get to buy a bag of apples. Instead of you buying a bag of Flaming Hots, go buy a bunch of bananas. Instead of you buying a bunch of frozen dinners or buying a bunch of soda that has high fructose corn syrup, buy some water and buy some of those Crystal Light flavoring packets. There are all sorts of alternatives that you have that are more healthy alternatives. And people want to try and break this down into, oh, they're just being racist. It's the Republicans. It's blah, blah, blah. No, the Republicans are being intellectually honest enough to actually say with legislation, since you don't know how to make healthy choices on your own, we're going to make them for you. And we understand that by doing that, in the long run, it's going to drive down the cost and the money that we're spending on Medicaid. It's really just that simple. And like you just heard the one guy there in the dread say, if you don't like it, spend your own money and get whatever you want. Nobody is telling any American that they can't buy something when they're spending their own money. They're telling you there are certain things you can't spend your money on when you're spending our money. And I don't understand. That just makes sense. I don't understand the pushback on that. Dexter said, I bought my juicer 3 years ago. I make my own juices. Exactly. It's not even that, it's really not even that complicated, people. I really don't understand. Laura said, I am enjoying the show. Please be sure to share it weekly. We want to grow the channel and I can't do it without you. Absolutely, people. I really enjoy, correction officer said, great show, David. I appreciate that. Karen posted, I eat more salads and I make my own soups, not because I'm learning to eat to live, instead living to eat, instead of eating, or she's learning to eat to live instead of living to eat. Let me just say this, because I really, really enjoy cooking, and I would come home and cook 9 times out of 10 before going out to the grocery store. And maybe I'll do a show specifically about this, but I want to end the show right here about talking about eating, eating and being more healthy. If you keep these staples in your house, you'll be able to make anything taste good. I don't care if you buy some Wagyu beef, or you buy the toughest chuck roast, or whatever pork. These are just some staples that you need to keep in your house. There are certain herbs that you should always have in your house. You should always have basil, chives, tarragon, marjoram, and cilantro. Those 5, and mint. And mint. Those 5 herbs at a bare minimum. You should always have those herbs. You can always mix and match them. You can use them as a finishing, once you're done cooking, whatever it is that you're cooking. You can make a chimichurri out of that. And you can make, and again, it's a very low cost, very healthy way to use as an accoutrement on protein. So you've got those 6 herbs that you should always have in your house. There are certain spices that you should always have in your house. Salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, and then you can pick a couple of different, spices. It might be chipotle, or it might be cayenne, or, something like that. But you should, at the very, very least, have those 5 to 6 staple seasonings in your house. What about root vegetables? You should, at the very bare minimum, you should always have in your house onions, celery, garlic, bell pepper, carrot, and some sort of, spicy pepper. It could be jalapeno, it could be serrano, it could be habanero, it could be Scotch bonnets. But if you have those 5 herbs, those 6 herbs, if you have those 5 or 6 actual seasonings, and you have those 5 to 6 actual root vegetables, you can always throw something in there like celery root or sweet potatoes, or something like that. And then after you have those things, you should always have these 4 things in your house. Olive oil or avocado oil. There'll be some of you who will push back and say avocado oil, but I would definitely say always have olive oil, vinegar, Worcestershire, soy sauce, rice wine vinegar. I'm telling you, if you have those things, if you have those herbs, those seasonings, those root vegetables, and then you have those liquids. And then obviously, you're gonna have, stuff like, butter, or, whatever. But those 4 lists that I just gave you, with those ingredients, you can make anything taste like you're eating at a Michelin restaurant. And then, correctional officer, don't even get me started on, oh, see, he going there. Don't even get me started on whether or not if you got a smoker, if you've got an offset smoker, or if you have a kettle grill, the way that you prepare it, has a lot to do with it. But if you have an offset smoker, you could get the cheapest, toughest piece of meat. And with those items that I just gave you, one last one, bonus one that I just remembered, bonus one that you always have to have as part of your staples. Ready for this one? Honey. You got to have some sort of honey. I would recommend getting, there's actually a butcher that's close to my house, and there's a woman who sells it's a really light honey, and the flowers that are by her beehive are lavender, so it's a really kind of almost golden type of color to it. But again, you get those herbs, those spices, those root vegetables, those liquids, and some honey. You can make anything tastes good. Dexter C said he buys very low sodium seasonings. Love that. You could always throw in soy sauce in there. You could always throw in a little teriyaki for those of you who want to do something a little bit Asian. You could throw a little bit of star anise in there as a different herb. Again, but the things I'm talking about are just like the foundational things. If you have just those foundational, and they're not expensive. That's the crazy thing. People have convinced I think Americans in general and Black people in particular, that it's expensive to eat healthy. And it's really, really not. Hell, you could put one of those little gardens in your kitchen window and grow your herbs. You only have to pay for them once, and then just cut them off as you need them. But again, I don't want to hold you any longer than that. I'm really, really glad that we were able to, that all of you who have participated in this live, I hope you got some worth and some value out of this. Like I said, we've got to get these teen takeovers under control. We've got to put our heads together as a society, and we've got to put some accountability in place. No more of this looking the other way. No more of this, oh, well, he's got a single mother and she works 2 jobs and blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares. That guy who had $1,000 worth of damage on his car because the kids were jumping up and down on his car, and if his deductible is $1,000, he doesn't care. He just wants his car fixed. And then, so we've got to get that under control. And with these SNAP benefits, these new rules that are coming in, like I said, I think they're fantastic, but we've really got to get back to basics about how we eat and how we are going to be more healthy, because I guarantee I've got plenty of people in my family, and I know you do as well. If you don't take care of your body, you can't trade it in. You can't trade it in, and you can't trade it up. You get one body. And the 2 biggest things that are going to contribute to how healthy you will be as you age is diet and exercise. So let me just read a couple of more of these. Karen, she says she's 64 and she's never been on vacation. Patah said, got that one. I took vitamins A, B, C, D, and E, and I drink mushroom coffee. I'm going to have to try that mushroom coffee. You throw in the chat, Karen, what's the brand of because I've been seeing that. A lot, but I don't. I'd be interested to know your recommendation of the one that you try. And another post: olive oil is liquid plumber for our arteries and our veins. Absolutely right. I mean, one last thing that I'll just say before I leave. You take some honey and some garlic and a little bit of ginger, and you put some cayenne or some crushed red pepper flakes in it, and you mix that up and take a teaspoon of that every day. Excellent antioxidant. You will, because most of us have a lot of inflammation when your joints are hurting, and when it's just painful to just move, even when it's simple movements. Usually that's from inflammation. Usually that means you haven't been eating enough of the right things. So again, I'm going to probably dedicate a show just to that, just to talk about how we can just make simple and better choices to improve our quality of life. And that's what I want this show to be about. I want it to be something that benefits everyone and all of us. So again, I appreciate everybody joining in. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, drop a like before the stream ends. Drop a like, drop a thumbs up, a heart, or even if you didn't like it, drop a frowny face, and share this show with at least 2 to 3 people who are like-minded, who want to see us get a better handle on our youth and want to see our people experience healthier outcomes. If we don't get that stuff under control, if we don't get law and order under control, and we don't get our health under control, nothing else matters. And I really, really believe that. Healthy Practices will be a good podcast. Great info, David. Absolutely. That's what we're gonna do. And maybe we'll just kind of pick a day. If you have a recommendation on what day of the week, or if you have your own recommendations, like I said, and you want to appear on the show, make sure you email me at thedavidseatonshow@gmail.com. You can throw your recommendations in there. And then when we do that show, I'll send you the link so that you can jump on the show and we can have, like I said, let's grow this community together. I appreciate everybody. Don't forget, if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe and turn on your notification bell, because we've got Tyrone Muhammad joining us on Thursday. And then we've got Zoe Lee and Danielle Carter from Chicago Flips Red joining us on Sunday. And I'm going to have some other things uploaded. I promise you, today was a busy day. It's just been a busy beginning of the year, but I am going to maintain that commitment to you to make sure that I bring as much value to us as possible. She said 7 mushroom coffee from the health store, $15 to $30 a packet. I will definitely jump on that. I'm gonna have to try that. And Karen, that's my girl, so she'll know as soon as I try whether I like it or not. But let's do that, everybody. Well, when like I said, email me, and when we do that show, email me the one favorite thing that's a staple as part of your health journey, so that we can share this with everybody. Like I said, love this community. I really appreciate everybody hanging out. And guess what? We will see everybody on